Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Blue Martian. We got the frame all blown apart. We're ready to actually start fixing this frame, boxing it, getting it ready. I can't wait for it to be a roller again. This is always the all the way down part. You always get so excited to see the body put back on it. But what we're going to do today is we're going to cut out this front cross member. This front cross member that's on this Model A is trash. It's rusted out, it's cracked, it's pretty messed up. It's not worth saving at all. So what I'm going to do is cut it in half. Then I'm going to cut out all my rivets, then I'm just going to knock it out and get it out of the way. But before I cut it down, I'm going to take all the paint off here and then get really good marks of where this is on the frame. I'm going to get all my measurements to make sure when I go to put the new cross member in. I actually got this cross member from Millworks Hot Rod. Make sure you check out millworks.com or millworkshotrod.com. We'll put a link in the video right here and in the description, so check that out. This is where we got our new cross member from. This thing's awesome. It's stronger than the original, and it's actually 1 inch shallower, more shallow than the original. So what that means is it's giving us 1 inch more of a drop. So that's pretty much a reverse eye spring right there, reverse eye leaf spring right there, just in this one piece. So this is going to be awesome. It's going to get us a little bit lower, and it's going to be stronger than the original. Biggest part is when you're putting a V8 or anything bigger than a 4-cylinder in one of these Model A's, is this does not have the big engine mount on the back. So that gives us a lot more clearance for our engine, and I'm excited about that because I don't want it to go too far into the cow. So let's get to work. So I'm going to start with getting the paint off right here. I'm probably going to be doing most of my welding and getting this bracket welded to the bottom just so the frame doesn't want to go in and out during this process. So the way I like to do this is I'm going to put my angle iron down here to structure for the frame, so when I cut this out nothing goes wonky. But what I like to do is get this on here and get it perfectly level with the front cross member. So I'm going to measure this all the way across and make sure it's whatever random inches it is. Right now I'm probably going to go 3 inches away from the front cross member. So my brace is going to be perfectly level or parallel, however you want to call it, with the front. So when I go to put this on, I know how, I have another reference point that's up here up close. So this one is going to be exactly 3 inches away all the way across as well. But I still need to measure a bunch of other measurements from the front here. Let's see, we can go off of the center of the cow feet bolt, because Ford, for one thing that Ford actually did good back in the day, was centering everything at the factory. Everything was true center. So I'm going to go from the front to the middle of that cow foot bolt. I'm going to write that down on the frame on both sides. Then I'm going to go 3 inches all the way across here. Then if you had the center bracket, it's pretty nice to measure it to the center bracket, but we already cut that out, but that's okay. We can still make this process work just like this, and should come out pretty straight and true. when we made this table, we made this as a removable jig. It can be clamped down, it's jigged down, it's perfectly straight and parallel. Then we can take it off, flip it over, and clamp it back down again. So it's time to start using our jig and clamp this down. Just make sure the frame doesn't move when we're doing this process. So now the rivets on the top here, they're mushroomed, then they ground them off kind of flush from factory. So what I like to do is to drill those out, then air hammer the extra out. The rivets on the side and the bottom are pretty straightforward, traditional rivets. I like to grind those down flat, then knock those out. Makes it easy job. Now you don't have to grind it down completely smooth, completely flat. You can get into the edges here a little bit more if you do that, which I'm trying to avoid. Once this is this thin, when I get my air hammer and smash it through, it's going to be so weak right there, it's just going to mushroom back in or collapse back in on itself and just go shooting out. Now with everything level, we go to weld in this cross member. We want to make sure it's roughly at 7 degrees. A lot of the manufacturers of these cross members say 5 to 7. I like to put them at 7. 7 is the stock caster of a Model A, and we go to drive them faster than that. So more closer to 0 caster, the easier it is to turn at a dead stop. More caster, like 7, 10, it drives straighter down the highway. Stock Model A is 7. Something that, so a stock Model A goes like 45, 55 range miles per hour. 7 is good for that, and it's a little squirrely at 55. Trust me, I know when you go to about 10, that gets you more highway speeds, like 70. It actually feels pretty good. It doesn't feel super squirrely. So I'm going to shoot for 10. Cross member is going to be 7. Axle is going to be 10. So I'm going to weld this in at 7 degrees. And now here's the fun part of getting all this slop at 7 degrees and our measurement accurate. Now obviously this doesn't have the big motor mount when I did that 3-inch. What I'm telling myself is when I go to measure the sides here, that they're even on both sides, because I know this is even and true. Then obviously I know for my cow feet's true. Then obviously, or well, I don't want to say obviously a million times. So let's get this piece. Now realizing I didn't explain this part of it, I went off of 3 inches from this. Obviously the new cross member doesn't have the motor mount. So what we're going to do is, I wasn't measuring it for this motor mount, I was measuring it to be true in the frame. So I know this is straight and true, my bracket, so when I go to weld this on, I can make sure it's straight and true from my angle iron here. Then I can make sure it's the same distance from the cow foot, that's why I measured that. And I have my cross measurement I did when my father was here to make sure this frame is square and this is square. So there's a lot of different measurements that's going to help me to make sure this is straight and true. I have to do all that while making sure this is at 7 degrees when I weld it on. So a lot of measuring to do, a couple tack welds. But if you guys are afraid of doing this kind of stuff at home at your place, do it. This is not that big of a deal. Just keep measuring, make sure all your measurements are right. Okay, so I've been tapping and tapping probably for 15-20 minutes to get this right. We're at 7 degrees, kind of closer to the 8 degree mark, which is fine with me because I'm going to end up doing 10 degrees anyways. And I've measured this from everywhere I can measure it, from the edge to the center of the cow foot hole. I made sure it was dead even with the angle iron that we welded in. I made sure from all the way to the back of the cross member to the center of the radiator support hole on both sides is even. And that took a lot of little tiny taps with the hammer this way and that way and this way and that way over and over and over again. So we kind of just skipped over that part of the video. Very time consuming and tedious. And I had to put one of my air hammer chisels inside the hole for the leaf spring and tap that side to side to get it right side to side, so from the edge of the frame to the center of the bolt hole for the air support, it's all even in every single direction I could possibly think to measure it in. So I think this is good to weld in. It's at the right angle that we want it to be, and it's as straight and true as I could possibly get it. So there she blows. Cool down. I have a nice weld across the top that I won't grind down, so it has to be a good weld. I don't want to lose any structural integrity. Then when we box it, we'll weld right up to these as well, so these will be grabbed pretty good grabbed into the frame here. Then obviously I'm also going to weld the holes that we drilled out. but this doesn't have all the brackets for the rivets. This one's actually made to be welded in. It's not made to be riveted in. So I got a lot of holes to weld up on the front side of the frame because I want the front side of the frame to look as good as possible. And I'll weld up all the holes on the back side of the frame just for the fact of the frame doesn't get full of water. Not going anywhere now. When I go to flip the frame upside down, then I'll get some better welds on the bottom side of the frame too, and just weld it from every angle that I possibly can. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Blue Martian, guys. We're at the very bottom of it before we go back up. So that's kind of the slower, tedious part. The next episode, I'm probably going to box the frame, and depending on time for me, I'd like to throw it back on the ground and try to put the motor and transmission in it to know where the transmission crossmember is going to go in. I think I want to put the transmission crossmember in before I cut the back of it off. I got the awesome mandrel bent rear kick up from Boling Brothers. I got this crossmember from Millworks Hot Rods, and Boling Brothers is hooking us up with the transmission crossmember. So all that's going to be awesome. And then we have ladder bar suspension from Millworks. So we really appreciate being sponsored by Millworks and Boling Brothers. They're going to make this frame, or they're helping us to make this frame, a really nice driving horsepower frame. And the next video, I'm actually going to explain some really big news that we have coming up with the Blue Martian. Things that we found that's going to make this truck just that much cooler. So tune into the next episode when I spill the guts on where we're going with this project exactly, and the history of it and how exciting the history is. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you like and subscribe to Raw in Style.